Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent. And do you ever sometimes get the feeling like we're working backwards here? Like we have more power under the hood than ever before. Hardware is really pushing the limits. It feels like we have no compromises, yet we as consumers are being told to make compromises with the products we're buying. Games are barely reaching target frame rates, target resolutions that we've come to expect. It's a very uneven slate of games these days, and they're coming from the most expensive games. This is all really starting back in 2022 when Gotham Knights was hitting the market, and we were hearing, what? 30 frames? Oh, it's a one-off. And by the way, this was an Unreal Engine 4 game, and now we know the reputation that Unreal Engine 5 has. But then you start to see other examples crop up. A Plague Tale Requiem is barely hitting 45 FPS, but it's a AA game, and look, this is an in-house engine in Zuna. All right, sure. But then high-profile console exclusives like Starfield end up targeting 30 frames and what they would describe as a nice 30 frames, which I do believe actually exists because there are some 30 frames that feel really, really bad, and there are some that are tolerable. But it's in-house again. We're talking about Creation Engine. This is all going to be key later in our conversation because a lot of this is really centered around Unreal Engine 5 with games like Black Myth Wukong, Oblivion Remastered, Mafia: The Old Country, Metal Gear Solid Delta. All of these games in one way or another feel technically compromised, or you have to work. It's a personal project to get the best performance out of these games. For example, one of the big powder keg moments for Unreal Engine 5 among many has been Metal Gear Solid Delta. Its PS5 Pro version, the strongest console on the market, is running the game poorly, inconsistently, and that was the thing the PS5 Pro was sold on. Is this Sony's fault? Is this Unreal's fault? Is this the developer's fault? The blame can be shared in many a way, and that's what we're going to get into today. Just to be forewarned, this isn't going to be like a high-level technical discussion because quite frankly, it's above my pay grade. Like, I work with great artists every single day of the week, and there is a level of knowledge that is unbelievable when it comes to this stuff. Like, it is a literal science, and many people are cut out for it. Others are not. For me, my kind of school, my trade, if you will, in game development has always been design, writing and narrative stuff, as well as the creative direction of the project. So in case you're afraid of me like dropping crazy terminology here, because sometimes I hear that in videos and I'm like, I hear this enough week to week. I don't want to hear this right now. So if you're worried about that, you're good here. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the conversation. But before we do, a quick word from today's sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, I am no skincare expert, but geology really makes me feel like when I'm starting to get the results, staying consistent with it. How do we get there though? If you know nothing about skincare, that's okay. You have a quiz that you fill out on their website. When you do that, they'll give you exactly what you need. Like, is your skin super dry or are you super oily? What's going on? They help you out of the way. For me, really bad dryness, so they equip me with these 4 things here, and I've been golden ever since. So first off, nice, skin-sensitive, safe face wash. For me, I dry out easy, so this has been clutch every morning. Also, throwing on a little bit of SPF cream every morning. Protect yourself from the sun, right? And then on top of that, dark under the eyes always got me, so they hooked me up with this night cream that you just kind of spray right here on your ring finger, rub it in underneath. It's beautiful. And then my wife does steal this one from me a lot, but whenever I get a chance to use it, this night cream as well is really nice before bed. And so with all 4 of these combined, my skin has been doing fantastic, and yours can as well. So if you are interested in any of that, use my link and code, grab 80% off your personalized skincare trial set, plus you get a free gift with up to 50% off add-ons, and trust me, your skin will thank you. Shout out to Geology for sponsoring today's video. All right, so we have games dating back to 2022 with issues, many of them not Unreal Engine 5. Now we're seeing a common theme approach. Unreal Engine 5 games are running terribly. Some way, somehow, it's almost like a death sentence. Why is that? Well, let's start at the core here. Developers have been handed more power here. Like, Unreal Engine 5 is a very powerful engine. However, what's happening here is because many devs have been handed more power is with great power comes great responsibility, and plenty of developers are not being responsible with the power that they are given. By that, I mean less optimization practices are being taken. So more power equals pushing to do everything with a little bit more brute force throughout the entirety of the game, rather than making more conscious, creative, solution-oriented decisions to make the game. Things like asset reuse are a great example here, where every object in a world ends up being unique, and that's just not realistic and can also balloon game development timelines. It's these little decisions that add up, and it's why I've said before in conversations about, like, say, a game's budget, that it comes down to some development practices in many ways, and not always like how much people are getting paid to do the job that they're doing. But basically, Too Long Didn't Read is you have so much more power that you can just blast through your problems, or at least attempt to push through your problems without getting creative about the solutions. In other words, yes, this is one of the rare times I would give people the green light that I usually never do, in that saying a developer is being lazy. And this may not be a deliberate kind of lazy, like they don't care or they're not working hard on something else, but it's a lazy kind of thinking where projects require planning. And when I see unoptimized messes like this, it shows you that they didn't care enough to think through or try hard enough to think it through, especially when it's becoming a common practice here. And yeah, sure, it may not be always affecting the bottom line, because more hardcore gamers are talking about frame rate than I'd say your average Joe Schmo out there. The reality is these things do matter. Quality matters. I always say how gamers are the gatekeepers. If you want your game to go to the moon, you got to get through us first. If you get through us, we'll lift you to the high heavens and tell everyone about how great the thing you made is. But that means you have to give us the quality product first. What's starting to happen, though, is we're losing touch with artistic direction and artistic style in video games, and we're trading it out for raw power. So in turn, you'll see things like in a video from Threat Interactive, again, a great example of like a highly technical discussion that if you want more of that, you should check it out. But he breaks down a game that many of us love in Expedition 33, where a lot of its visuals in Unreal Engine 5 have been smeared, and it ruins a lot of the visual appeal. And a lot of this is making up for the poorly implemented Lumen. And because of poorly implemented features in Unreal Engine 5, many have defaulted to blaming Unreal Engine 5, which is why I say it's a bit of a shared blame. There are developer practices, but there's also problems with the engine. And actually, Epic responded to this recently with Metal Gear Solid Delta's issues, and I was surprised with what they had to say. The headline reads, Epic CEO suggests Unreal Engine 5 issues are due to developers optimizing late. And this is a machine translation, quote, the primary reason why Unreal Engine 5 base games don't run smoothly on certain PCs or GPUs is the development process. Many developers develop games for high-end hardware, then perform optimization and testing on lower spec devices in the final stages of development. Of course, optimization is by no means an easy task. It is a very challenging one. Ideally, optimization should be implemented early in development before full-scale content building begins. Sweeney says there are two major solutions the company is putting in place to try and help developers with this in the future, with one being to provide automated optimization features for various devices, making the process faster and easier for developers, and the other being to strengthen developer training and awareness of how important the optimization process is in the early stages of creating a game. He also mentions that the games are becoming more complex than ever to make, and that engine and game developers are now increasingly required to work together to solve the multitude of issues that can crop up during the process. And yeah, if you can tell by the front half of this video and the argument I'm making, I kind of agree with a lot of what he's saying, but also you can see the admittance of an engine issue here, because he does say, well, we're going to provide features that are going to help fix these sorts of things, like automated optimization features. And I don't want to sound like I'm corporate bootlicking here, so let me just help myself out and just say, I think both are true from my point of view. But really, I think the core component of this discussion is that art direction in gaming has become, ironically, a lost art in many areas, and game developers do need to get in touch with that. Because at the end of the day, we have started to have these issues as recently as 2022. And a return to focus of good art style, good art direction is so needed. This even goes for fidelity-driven games before I get into the more artsy-fartsy ones. Look, I know it's controversial to some, but I'm not talking about the story here. Let's just look for a moment at The Last of Us Part 2. It's an absolutely stunning game, and I'm talking about the PS4 version here, but that's because the art style can give it some of that evergreen feel in its appearance. its color palette, its lighting style. And obviously, depending on your art style, your evergreen feel to your art will vary a large amount. Like, we're not talking about Borderlands here, where you get Borderlands in, I think it was like 2009, and the game was really unique looking at that time with its cel-shaded art style. But then when you did the Borderlands Game of the Year edition all those years later, it aged like a fine wine. It was perfect. That's the beauty of a great art style. It's like a smudged Vaseline covered image, and it's like we just wiped it clean and it looks brand new once more. Those are the types of games that we need to get back in touch with, the more imaginative ones. There is always going to be a place for fidelity, but the problem is when you see images like this, it feels like developers are out of touch. Who in the flying shit gives a single fuck about what the hair looks like to that level, dude? Yeah, I want it to look clean, maybe. Sure, especially nowadays. But to that level, I mean, yeah, there's a difference. But we're at the point now where the power is giving us diminishing returns, and we're looking for ways we can push the power in ways that do not make a difference in video games like they once did, right? Let's use the spark plug of this whole conversation, Metal Gear Solid 3, as a great example of how evergreen design in various ways can help you out down the road and have your game age well, because it's all about good artistic direction. And that's Metal Gear Solid 3's cutscenes. Remember what I said about just like going up to a smudged image and wiping it clean? You give these characters all these new facial animations, and you clean up the texture quality, and all these characters look incredible, but you keep the same exact cutscenes that Kojima shot, and you look at how marvelously the storytelling in this game has aged. Like, virtually they needed zero work from a cinematic point of view because of how Kojima shot them. He put thought and care into how his story would be presented, and because of that, it is timeless, not just in the story that is told, like, okay, bear with it, man, like, it's a little bit old feeling, but it's a great story underneath it all. It's like, no, you could watch this nowadays and it's shot so well. But that's because back then, when you couldn't push hair technology, you had to find other ways to make your game be taken seriously. You had to get creative with art direction. You had to find unique solutions to push, say, the technology or the cinematic quality of your game. You want to go even further back with Metal Gear. I just played Metal Gear Solid 1 for the first time, and I was absolutely stunned by how great this game was shot. I know we're getting a little bit away from the point here of artistic direction, but it still shows how games can be evergreen in more ways than just its appearance. This game was incredibly cinematic, despite all of like the pixel shifting the game has and how old it really looks and how grainy it looks as a PS1 game. None of that really ended up mattering to me because it was shot incredibly well. It also helps that that game's just like absolutely gas, but that's a whole other sidebar. But when we're focused on hair, and I know I'm cherry picking a little bit, but when that's like a targeted feature among others, right? Like, I remember even back in 2012, we were what I would call pixel fucking quite a bit, where it was like, watch this cloth flow naturally in the wind. And yeah, these things are great because they bring the world to life, but when it is your sole focus in generational jumps, that's when there is a problem. You know, it's not like when we jumped from, say, the PS2 to the PS3 or the original Xbox to the 360. That jump to HD was everything. I feel so bad for the people who missed that. That jump was everything. And I would even argue, especially with this generation in mind, the jump from PlayStation 3 to 4 and Xbox to Xbox One was also pretty significant. It was a well-measured generation. We got a lot of the benefits that came from PS3 and Xbox 360 with high-definition visuals, but we got to push that a little bit further. Also, we got to push things like scale a little bit further. It felt like we were starting to make those creative decisions to making big, incredible games, but it was like a PS3 game uncompromised, just like the PS3 would allow you to make PS2 games uncompromised. But it feels like in the lack of compromise because of power in this generation, developers have completely lost their vision of how to keep a project on rails and not completely destroy the technical performance of the product they are building. There is no reason why a game like Metal Gear Solid 3, which by the way is a remake in the truest sense, like you literally have levels that are the size of my pinky that you run across, and this game runs like ass. How is that even possible with levels that small? It goes down to really poor optimization. Yes, Unreal Engine 5 plays a factor in all of these, but it comes down to developers and how they are applying various artistic techniques to their game. That is destroying the performance of your games. And yes, other features in Unreal Engine 5 aren't helping, which is why Tim Sweeney is saying, like, yeah, we're going to implement some other features to help alongside that. Because, I mean, what is the guy going to say, right? Like, yeah, our engine sucks. Like, go use something else. Like, they make so much money off people building games off their engine. Like, I think if you pass $1 million, you start handing them a little piece of the pie. So just for every successful game on the market, Epic takes a little bit of money. So of course they want people to use their engine, especially when like Unity's weakened right now. Godot is kind of rising up. It's like, you got Unreal right there. But in my talks with a lot of developers, many of them are like, don't use Unreal Engine 5, like stick with 4. It's so interesting to see the conversation right now. But I think a lot of it comes down to developer approach. And I wanted to talk about it because it's a really important subject matter. It may sound like the, my frames, and look, man, I get it, but I think when the customer is being promised something and they got used to something in a prior generation and they have not seen that carry forward or evolve in a meaningful way, I don't think we're sitting here asking for the world. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Other than that, take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.